A while ago, I made a video about the ongoing attack on YouTube, carried out by the sinking ship of old media. I pointed out that this attack is effective only because there is a generational gap, which enables the media to misrepresent YouTubers and portray them as spreading bigoted and hateful ideas. I was not aware at the time of the ordeal that Count Dankula has been going through in the past year, but when I became aware of it, I realized it represents the most extreme example of the generational gap I was talking about, at least so far. And, especially as a Jew, I felt like I needed to say something about it. So if you're not familiar with the story, Marcus Meechan, known on YouTube as Count Dankula, is a comedian from Scotland. In April 2016 he posted a video in which he plays a prank on his girlfriend by turning a cute little dog into an evil Nazi.
Do I gas the Jews? Do I gas the Jews? Do I gas the Jews? Gas the Jews? Jews. It's time to get up now, Buddha. It's time to get up. Do I gas the Jews?
Ausgekehlt wurde von dem leichten Zeug, das sie für einzufinden begann. Heute müssen wir selbst...
Sieg heil! Sieg heil! Sieg heil! Sieg heil!
The video is hilarious and went viral, but got Meechan into a whole lot of trouble. Some humorless Jews, yes they do exist, complained about the video, and Marcus was arrested for disseminating hate speech. Apparently, Scotland is worried that an army of Nazi pugs might rise up and take over if they don't do something about it now. He is now on trial, and faces up to a year in prison, all for a harmless little joke. I am making this video to express my support to Count Dankula, but I also want to take the opportunity to do what I do, and discuss the cultural processes that led to this unfortunate chain of events. What Count Dankula has done here is basically a Holocaust joke. Now, in Israel, we are still very careful with Holocaust jokes. Many Holocaust victims are still living among us, and when I say Holocaust victims, I mean not only people who were physically in the Holocaust, but also their children, who had to grow up with severely traumatized parents. It's not hard to understand how growing up in this situation would leave you with deep psychological scars, and we consider them to be victims as well. I, on the other hand, am not a Holocaust victim. At the time it was happening, my grandparents on one side were living in Israel, and on the other side they were living in England. They lost family members in the Holocaust, but did not experience it themselves, so I don't have any scars. And most Jews living today are like me. Some people, however, would want you to believe that all Jews are Holocaust victims, because they all belong to the group that was targeted. This is a view that I strongly reject. Victimhood is a form of emotional disability. It is something that stifles your ability to live a free and happy existence. If you were a victim of something, you should try to let go of it and leave it behind, and not wallow in your victimhood. Obviously, some events are so traumatic that they are almost impossible to leave behind, and then you have to learn to live with your victimhood as you would with any other disability. But to inflict victimhood on ourselves, as the aforementioned people want us to do, is something that we must resist in the most adamant way. So fuck you for trying to victimize me. In Europe, meanwhile, the Holocaust is also a very touchy subject. The Europeans felt guilt after the Holocaust, and justifiably so, since it was the anti-Semitism intrinsic to European culture that enabled the rise of the Nazis, and the Jewish genocide that followed. The guilt was also due to the fact that Europeans knew that there is still a lot of anti-Semitism in their midst. But in the decades after the Holocaust, Western society worked hard to eradicate this disease, and today we can say that Western culture is no longer anti-Semitic. There are of course the obligatory 10% of the population who are still anti-Semites, but that's inevitable. On every issue, there will always be the 10 to 15% of bigots. When you get to those numbers, it means that anti-Semitism is no longer a systemic, cultural problem. If you want to know what it looks like when it is a problem, check out the situation in Arab cultures. In the previous decade, when the internet started to make its way into the Arab world, I lurked some Arab forums, wanting to see how they think. I realized that they are so anti-Semitic that they don't even know that they are anti-Semitic. You would see good people trying to convince their friends that not all Jews are evil, and not all of them want to take over the world. No one, however, thought of challenging the premise itself. The idea that Jews want to take over the world was regarded as self-evident truth. This is what systemic anti-Semitism looks like, and this is what the West used to be like as well, but not anymore. Unfortunately, Europe went too far. Some geniuses thought that the best way to prevent another genocide would be to ban the kind of speech that might lead to it. And so they passed hate speech laws, and made Holocaust denial illegal. The outcome was a complete disaster. Holocaust denial became an underground thing, and it thrives as a subculture that purports to hold some clandestine truth that the authorities are trying to silence. Without debate, the Holocaust deniers can spread their lies unchallenged, and become cultural heroes. And with no Western country dealing with the issue, Iran took the lead, and steers the debate in the direction it wants, becoming a hub that helps global Holocaust denial to flourish. This is a prime example of what happens when you limit freedom of speech. With the rise of internet culture, I noticed a change in atmosphere. Suddenly, we are flooded with anti-Semitic and Holocaust jokes. Part of it is due to anti-Semitism, coming out of the underground and rearing its ugly head, and the jokes are an expression of hate. But a bigger part, I've realized, expresses something else. Youngsters today are making anti-Semitic jokes because they are completely free of hate, and anti-Semitism just seems so ridiculous to them. And this, to me, is a very healthy development. Finally, you have a generation that is free of the hate and free of the guilt, and has washed anti-Semitism out of its system to such an extent that it can now point and laugh at it. Anti-Semitism, that specter that haunted European culture for centuries, is being turned by internet culture into a joke, into nothing more than a trove for internet memes. As a result, it is being stripped of its power to entice young minds, and thus being reduced as a menace to society. The regular claim made against these jokes is that they help to normalize anti-Semitism. This fear would have been justified in the past, when anti-Semitism was intrinsic to Western culture, and in the decades that followed the Holocaust, when the issue was entangled in a web of guilt and victimhood, there were also good reasons to oppose this type of humor. Today, when the vast majority of Westerners have got anti-Semitism completely out of their system, there is no danger that jokes would normalize anti-Semitism for them. As I've said, the opposite is more likely. We Jews need to let go of the fear, realize that these jokes are a mark of progress, and adjust ourselves to this new and improved society. Now, as I said, there are still plenty of anti-Semites around, and they are making hateful jokes that should be condemned. The way to judge if Count Dankula is one of them is to see what the intent behind his joke was. I was vaguely familiar with the Count before, having seen a couple of his videos, but I didn't know much about him. So to find out his intent, I first of all watched the Nazi Pug video itself, and saw that he opens it by saying this.
My girlfriend is always ranting and raving about how cute and adorable her wee dog is, and so I thought I would turn him into the least cute thing that I could think of, which is a Nazi.
And he closes it by saying this.
I'm not racist, by the way, I just really wanted to piss her off.
Which makes it pretty obvious that the joke was not hateful, but was actually making fun of Nazis. A little more digging revealed that Marcus is against bigotry in all its forms, and has a history of fighting against it online. You should be almost inhumanly obtuse to honestly believe that what he was doing in his video was hate speech. Still, it's understandable why some people would be honestly offended by the video, and when you make such risque jokes and offend people, you should explain your intent and apologize. This is what PewDiePie did when he got in trouble for anti-Semitic humor, and I was pleased to find that Count Dankula had done the same. Once he did that, this is where it should have ended. But it didn't end there in his case, because contrary to common belief, there are actually still some Nazis out there. PC Nazis, that is. First of all, our friends from the regressive left, with their anti-liberal values. The social justice warriors believe that the way to fight anti-Semitism is by trying to prevent it from being heard, and in that they are causing some serious harm to the fight against it. The best example is the story of Count T. The German-English YouTuber is one of the fiercest online voices in the battle against anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial. Kraut knows a lot about the subject, and debunks the claims of the deniers, including hosting them on his channel and defeating them in debate. But that, to the SJWs, means that he is giving them a platform, and therefore helping them. When an SJW called Sabrina Bonfert accused him on Twitter of being an anti-Semite, the indignant crowd demanded that he back that statement with facts, or hang himself on it. Bonfert then reported him for allegedly telling him to commit suicide, and got Kraut and T banned from Twitter. And so, because of this scumbag, the platform lost an important voice in the fight against anti-Semitism. Some of these social justice warriors are behind the current old media campaign against YouTube, and they are exploiting the generational gap to do some old-fashioned fear-mongering. To the normies, those who aren't well versed in internet culture, it appears that there is an alarming rise in anti-Semitism, and the SJWs are riding this feeling to claim that something should be done about it. And I think that this is what is behind the persecution of Count Dankula. The authorities are looking for someone to punish, to make an example of. He is a martyr who is paying the price for our transgressions. To that, I can only say what I said in the previous video. Party on, and don't be deterred. We are going to defeat this. As for the Jews who are behind this witch hunt, I must say that there is something very suspicious about them. A Jew without a sense of humor is not kosher. I think they need another circumcision. And to Count Dankula I want to say, stay strong, my dude. You are being persecuted for no reason, and you are going through a hard time, but you will be remembered as a comedy legend. And if any of you out there are still feeling guilt, you can support me on Patreon. It will make you feel instantly better, I promise you. Some of you are already generous enough to support me, but you can do more. You can do more. I know that you need the money yourself, but you need to let go of the... Okay, that's enough.